Okay, well, we enter today with the Grimace streak officially snapped yesterday in Texas. And you know what they say, all Cinderella stories eventually come to an end. When there is Grimace, there's usually Ronald McDonald, which is the poster clown of the franchise. And the Mets got a visit from him on the mound in the seventh inning yesterday. More on that later. Episode number 59 of the Mets Weekly Podcast, Mets Rangers Series Recap, live at this very moment on X and on YouTube. Let's get this one started. Roll that intro. Okay, so now for our usual house cleaning, I just want to remind everybody to subscribe to the Mets Weekly YouTube channel for this very podcast, which is now recorded live on Sundays and on Thursdays following every single series of games. If it was every single game, would pass out. For those of you watching on playback and want to join the conversation live the next time, make sure to turn on those post notifications to know when we go live. For those of you in the live chat right now and are wondering if your comments are being ignored, we're just letting you know we love reading them, but they are being starred, and we will make sure to pull up as many as we can throughout the live stream to keep the flow of the conversation going. Also, remember to follow us on X, on TikTok, which mainly features Frank's instant reactions after every single Mets game, titled The Mets Frankly Postgame. And for our audio listeners, make sure to follow us on any of your favorite listening platforms to not miss the audio version of this episode and all new episodes that go up at 9 a.m. on Mondays and Fridays. So, the streak has been snapped. The Mets are currently sitting one game out of this hilarious National League wildcard race. They've been playing better baseball. The Mets offense has been great in June. But overall, definitely a sour end, I would say, to the uprising of the Mets playing a lot better baseball in this past week. Andrew, what do you think your main takeaways, first things that you want to say?
A lot of things we saw that we liked continued, and some things that we've seen for years continued. Again, it's good to see some fight. Obviously, just a massacring in game one, and then game two, seeing that this team has a set of testicles of going down. You get a bad start out of a guy who's been reliable for the most part, and the offense picks him back up. And then you go to just the game three, and hey, polar bomb and all this, we're looking good. The bullpen starts to implode, and then a certain beautiful red great pitcher comes in, and an old fellow and a loose two-run homer, of course, to the shittiest hitter in the lineup, because that's what he does. He can't just give them up to the best hitters. It's got to be the most just either ice cold, just dog water player. He always gives them up. But again, you knew they weren't going to go 100-0 under this Grimace, whatever. They keep winning series. I mean, that's this wild card race is god awful, but again, somebody's going to have to take it. And again, on paper, you could say, if you look at the back of the baseball card, they're better than most of the teams that are god awful. So again, you're going into Chicago, but overall, Texas was a decent series. You're seeing some offensive, seeing some depth throughout the lineup, not just, the top four. Now you're starting to see some of the younger guys had pretty good series. So overall, again, it's good to seeing, a team you don't see well. You beat them up, the defending World Series champions. They're supposed to be the best team in baseball. Even though they suck this year, it's still good, again, to see winning series and see if they can keep it going.
Frank, the recaps, you get to do them after every single game. But how do you feel at this entire series in general of these last three games?
I just feel that it's like I kind of said in the last stream, but with Drew Smith, it's like, we talked about like Diekman or Otto, whatever, and it's like, that's a 1 year sample size. 1 year of Diekman being here, and we're like, okay, how much of a leash does he have? But for Drew Smith to be here since 2018, doing the same thing year after year, yet still be on the team, I still just I can't believe it. Like, it's almost like a sick joke or like a nightmare or something, and it's just I just can't believe it. Like, we've seen so many Mets relievers come and go. I mean, we talk about catcher graveyard, center field graveyard, third base graveyard, whatever. But we've seen so many relievers that the Mets used in these big spots that didn't come through. And after they blew the game a few times, they're gone. You don't see them again. And for the most part, a lot of these pitchers turn out to be good pitchers in other organizations. But yet somehow Drew Smith always stays. And it's just so mind-boggling to me. I mean, I can't get over it. And again, the problem is the home run ball. Like, he's such a trick to the casual fan because his ERA always looks good. It always looks good. He came into the Texas game, it was like a 2.42 ERA. But when you bring the guy in on Sunday after Jake Diekman has the blow-up, and Drew Smith is giving up laser after laser, and those runs are scoring, those runs get charged to Jake Diekman. They don't get charged to Drew Smith. So he's been doing this. That's why I first started disliking him, is because when he first got here, fans were like, oh my gosh, the Mets got something in the bullpen now. They have Drew Smith. And I'm like, this guy keeps coming in and giving up runs when there's guys on base, and they're like, oh, but the ERA is good. It doesn't matter. Watch the games. Watch the results. Watch of what happens before he gets there till after he's done. And he always, I would love this number. How many times does Drew Smith get the next batter out following a home run? Every time. It has to be a ridiculous percentage because he strikes out Adolis Garcia immediately after. You're never going to see Drew Smith have a 5-run inning where he gives up 5 runs, but he'll always give up that one run, that one big run, in this case, 2 big runs, that end up being the deciding factor in a ball game. Sean Reed-Foley was not good last night. Definitely not. He was bad. But Sean Reed-Foley has not given up a single home run this year. With a 3-batter minimum rule, with a walk problem, you could work around it. You could live with that. You could still make something happen. But when you have a home run problem and it's any moment, any pitch, I've said this how many times now? Like 30 times? Any time that you miss that one pitch and it's game over. There's no coming back from that. These back-breaking home runs, he does it in the biggest spots all the time. And still, he's here. You know what I mean? And it's like he's going to do it again more than one time throughout this season. And yet he'll still be here. Why does Nunez have to sign suspension? Why couldn't it be Drew? I mean, I don't know. It's just tough. It is just very, very tough that this guy, he just survives, And again, you see so many other pitchers they have a bad game or two and they're gone. And they go to an organization, they become great. But this guy, he still stays. And I just don't know what they see, because if he was a guy that he threw 98, threw 100, I'm like, okay, I could see something. I could see some potential. But what is it that he has going for him? What is it that he has that excites you as an organization that despite all your different GMs, managers, coaches, he survives? I just don't see it. He doesn't have put away stuff. He's not a big strikeout guy. I just don't understand the appeal of having him on the team. I just don't get it.
Yeah, okay. So just letting everybody know in the chat, my headphones are not working. So if you guys hear an echo at all, I'm just using my own 2 ears right now. So just let me know if you guys hear an echo in the chat at all whenever I'm talking. But other than that, in terms of Drew Smith, I mean, we can literally just dive face first into it, because obviously this is the latest topic that has been the entire situation with the Mets so far. In terms of their bullpen being as overworked as they have, and the limited options, I think that I've really kind of accepted that Drew Smith is going to be here just no matter what. I think I've already established that. But I still don't understand why. And I think the three of us don't understand why, and will continue to question as to why he is still here. I feel like I've gotten on too many tangents about this guy on Twitter, on here, and I feel like I'm just running in circles with this exact same argument. And I think that when you look at it in terms of what Drew Smith has been able to do, this guy glorified in a vacuum in terms of what you want to look at statistically. He is a low leverage arm. He is a low leverage reliever at best. The best part of his career has always been in low leverage situations. And I will admit I am wrong in one sense. When people talk about using Drew Smith in high leverage situations, he obviously can't do well in these high leverage situations. We know that. He's not good statistically in the high leverage situations. And he's also also has not been able to just put away batters at a consistent rate. That's really one thing that you look at in these high leverage situations. The thing about high leverage is that it also does take into account who is at the plate, who is a good hitter, who is the good hitter that he gives something up to. And I understand, that also does take into account of that. So yesterday was not considered a high leverage situation since Leody Taveras, not a good player. But I think that what we do really kind of falter over with the kind of disillusion that goes on with Drew Smith is that you have to look at the situation at hand. Any one of these batters that comes to the plate, whether it's the 9-hole hitter, the best hitter in the lineup, they constantly know that Drew Smith is prone to the... Because it is so easy to pull this guy's pitches. It is so easy to pick up this guy's pitches that he has become so susceptible to the home run ball that there's no reason to put him in these tie games or one-run games. So when you look at it in terms of just, putting a guy out there, right? Drew Smith is the last guy you want out there because, again, every single time that he's here in a close game, it doesn't matter who's at the plate. High leverage situations are high leverage situations. I get it. He's not a good high leverage reliever. When he's in high leverage, he doesn't pitch well. But even if you want to use the argument of these are the good hitters, this is one of the arguments I got today on Twitter. I shouldn't have been going back and forth with people, but I guess I just had too much free time today. But when I got this argument in terms of, well, high leverage is against the best hitters. The average reliever doesn't do well in these high leverage situations. Okay, well, if that's considered a high leverage situation against a good hitter, which is true, which I think gets misconstrued, what about the hitters that he gives all these home runs up to? Jason Castro? Is that a high leverage hitter? Mike Brossow? Willie Adames? If you are, come on. So what's the excuse for that? What's the excuse for giving up a bunch of home runs to the 9-hole hitter? Giving a bunch of home runs up to the lower third of the order? What's the excuse for that? He hasn't, it's all really just the situation in terms of hand. And I understand the Mets, they always have these games. Oh, there's limited run support. It's a tie game. Why is he being put in these tight games? And I don't understand that. And Frank said this on his post game last night. No matter how many front offices we go through, for some reason, they still believe that Drew Smith is a high leverage reliever. And I understand the advertisement in terms of that because his stuff grades out pretty well. But when he can't execute the thing, and he hasn't been able to execute it for 5+ years now, it becomes, in terms of the definition of insanity, is doing the same thing over and over again and thinking you will get a different result. I understand who wasn't available. I get it. But Drew Smith coming into a tie game, 9 times out of 10, he's going to collapse. He buckles under pressure. And I understand if you like your low leverage guys, an additional guy, the 8th guy in the bullpen, fine. But for me, in terms of a playoff team in the playoffs, of a team that is looking to compete, in terms of that, everybody should be able to pitch in multiple different situations. If we have to cater so many things to your need for you to succeed, you're a waste of a roster spot. It's the same thing with you can't pitch to left-handed hitters. You can't pitch to right-handed hitters. If you can't pitch to both, you're useless to me. If you can't hit left-handed pitchers, if you can't hit right-handed pitchers, these platoons constantly, they take up roster space. So unless you can do both, you're kind of useless. You take up too much space because then we have to bring in another guy to clean up your mess. And that's how I felt about Drew Smith for a long time. If he's only here to pitch in high leverage, what is he good for? Because when we talk about high leverage situations or talk about close games, do you usually have a lot of low leverage situations in the playoffs? Are you going to be facing are you going to be facing who's the guy, the Castro? Are you going to be facing him in the playoffs? Are you going to be facing Leody Taveras in the playoffs in high leverage situations? They're going to pinch hit for him, right? Are you going to be facing, who's the guy, the other, Wilmer Defoe? You going to be facing him?
Yeah, I see Nico Horner on here. I see Weimer on here. I mean, like,
come on.
Just a lot of not great hitters. And he does it in any inning. 6th inning, 7th inning, 8th inning, 9th inning. He just always, he has like impeccable timing. You know, he knows when to do it.
I mean, it's not the fact that it all just goes down to one moment, right? Like we talk about the guy that doesn't get named all the time from 06. That was one moment, right? And it's tattooed to him forever. This has happened for 5+ years now. So what is the excuse? What is the excuse now?
I can't imagine him in a playoff game like that. That is just, I mean, I can, but it's terrifying to think about. It really is.
Yeah. And, I mean, did he even pitch in the postseason for us? He did.
No.
And, oh, no, he got a scoreless outing. Never mind. You're wrong, Frank. Wrong. He's good.
Was that the game where they were getting killed?
Probably.
It had to be.
I don't know.
Yeah, it had to be. Or when they won by a lot. That would make more sense.
Probably. Yeah. And the main argument I always get is he has a career 3.5 ERA. That's good for a middle reliever. Then why is he used as a high leverage reliever? Are you guys silent because you know the answer, or you just don't know the answer to it?
I'm looking at the one inning he pitched in the postseason. He gave up a hit and a hit by pitch. So he still made it stressful. You know what I mean? Like, it wasn't clean. I mean, yeah.
And I'm not saying that Drew Smith is the worst reliever on the face of the earth.
He's not, but again, it's like we've seen the Mets just go through so many guys. The thing that bothers me, like besides the home run stuff, whatever, it's just how long it's been going on. That's kind of where I'm at. Is that like overall in a vacuum, he's not having a quote unquote bad season. But I think when you take it,
he never does. That's the thing.
Exactly.
He never does. In a vacuum, he never does. So nobody ever says anything.
Mm-hmm. I just think that when you look at the totality of just how many arms the Mets have gone through, like why him? But why is he the guy that has just survived? And all these other guys, they're gone before they get a real chance, and they turn out to be decent pitchers, more than decent pitchers, in other organizations. You know, I mean.
I just feel like we have the same conversation every time after
Paul
he
Sewald had 3 years with the Mets. And, you know, the first couple years were real bad. 2019, he wasn't great, but he didn't pitch all that much, and he was gone. Goodbye. And now the man has a 0.77 ERA, is one of the best relievers in all of baseball. Shuts down the Mets every time. So, but he was gone within 3 years. Drew is still here. You know, that's what I'm saying. Like, the leash on him is it's just mind-boggling to me.
I don't get it.
It's really crazy.
I don't get it. I really, when a team that is really have just done well with momentum, he sucks the life out of it. He completely sucks the life out of it because the Mets are not really a team that's been able to basically like make up for all their mistakes at will, right? Sometimes they're able to do it, but they're not known to be like, let's create this offense at will. It takes a while for them to get going. Once they get that spark, they get the spark and they're off to the races. But when you suck the living life out of the game, backbreaker, home run, that's all Drew Smith does. Here's one of my favorite analyses I got from this. And I'm calling people out. I'm not going to use their name because I'm not that big of a dick.
Dick Hammerbush. That's his name.
Yeah, his name's Dick Hammerbush. I've been told that it's crazy that Edwin Diaz has given up the same amount of home runs in few innings. As a Met, his home run per 9 only varies by a couple hundredths of a percentage. He has also blown 20% of his save opportunities. First of all, allow me to completely rebuttal this live on air. 15 of those home runs you're talking about happened 5 years ago, okay? Since then, Edwin Diaz, I'm sure he's blown a few games. He definitely has. But he fixed the home run issue. Drew Smith has not fixed the home run issue, okay? And not to mention, even going outside of this argument, the fact that you're comparing Drew Smith to a world-class reliever is just shameful in itself. If you're going to tell me that Drew Smith deserves to be in any conversation with Edwin Diaz, one of the most disgusting relievers in all of baseball, when he's right, like, at the end of the day, what the hell are we doing here? I don't understand how people just jump on a grenade for this guy. How? How do you do that? Is it because of the ERA that he has in his career? Is it because of that? Is that the reason why we do that? Now, before we move on, obviously, Andrew, if you want to add anything, we have a poll going on in the chat. 83% of you say that the Mets should cut ties with Drew Smith. 18% of you are saying that they shouldn't. I'm going to say that that's probably just because of his career earned run average. For those of you who voted no. Misleading. It's fucking leading.
It's very misleading.
And again, it's not even the point. Yes, is he a great pitcher? No. If you put him in Tommy Hunter's role, I don't think any of us would have a fucking problem with him. He's coming up in mop-up duty, or if he's coming in like in the 5th inning. So if the homer hits, you got 5 innings to go out and get back. Using him in the 6th, the 7th, and 8th, that's the fucking problem. Like, if you just put him in either mop-up duty or, hey, Sean Manaea gets out in the 2nd inning, you can do the 3rd and the 4th.
I don't, if you are only a low leverage reliever, I don't want you here at all, personally.
Yes, but that's not, teams don't look at it.
I don't want you here at all. I want 2 long relief guys, and then 6 guys who can spread out these situations.
Well, they don't want to do that when they have, 2 pitchers consistently. They only go 5 innings. They don't want to do that. So look what the hand they're given. It's like, if he's just putting that, again, Tommy Hunter, Sean Foley before he became decent, like, that role's fine with him. Just stop putting him in 8th inning. Use Sean, yes, Sean Foley wasn't effective yesterday. We all know Nunez wasn't available. Like, honestly, I'd rather see Adam Ottavino in the game than Drew Smith at this point. They both suck. It's piss or shit, but I'd rather see Ottavino in that spot. And then at least he's going to walk the ballpark. And like, okay, there's a shot he maybe gets out of it. Because you put Drew in the game. You knew a homer was coming. Like, we all know that story. But at this point, again, is he going to be gone? You're going to have to probably wait 3 months when his contract expires because – and that's even the saddest part because Stearns has been kind of cutthroat of you're not good, get out of here. Tonkin sucked for the Mets.
Who is amazing now. But again, but Andrew, that's my point. That's my point. is that
Yeah.
like Michael Tonkin, it was a few bad outings and he's gone. He is now lights out for the Yankees. But like you said,
we all know Drew Smith would do this with any other team.
I'm saying that like the
Yeah.
decision to get rid of guys is so quick with everybody else except him. Except him. He's the one guy who was like this special, like.
Well, he's a free agent at the end of this year, but you know, it's like.
And can't you see the Mets re-signing him? If they haven't,
I mean, with the cheapest of relievers on the market,
if they haven't
yes.
gotten rid of him yet, what makes you think they wouldn't want to try to keep him?
I don't know.
League man.
Can't tell. I mean, I hope that they don't. You know, obviously extending relievers, that is the top 1% type of thing, you know.
We know that.
Okay, and maybe, I guess this will put a funny wrap on this bow. Like, remember when Epler traded, you know, the certain potential all-star reliever for the Pirates?
Mm-hmm.
How much you want to bet there was a world where it could have been Drew Smith for Daniel Vogelbach? Like, just again, who knows? I
would have been good with that deal.
But young, controllable reliever at the time, you know, had term, you know.
No,
Drew
Drew had to be untouchable. Drew's untouchable.
Smith or Colin Holderman. You know what? I'll give up Colin Holderman. He's going to be the freaking representative for the Pirates.
I know it. I mean, it's just, and I understand, like, from the outside, it sounds like we're, you know, complaining about the 7th best reliever in the pen, right? And we're like, oh, we want a roster of great players, but you know, and like not anybody, and nobody on this team can suck. Everyone's got to be an all-star. I know that sounds like it. We're saying that. What we're saying is this guy's being used as a top-tier reliever, and he's not. Mm-hmm. And it's been proven for over 5 years now that he can't handle this type of situation. I understand if there was limited options. I get it. I think that better than people think, I think Mendoza has used the bullpen fairly well with what he's been dealt. But for some reason, every single manager, no matter who's here, puts Drew Smith in these high leverage situations because they believe that he can. And I understand why they believe that. But it's been proven time and time and time again that he cannot execute. This is not something that, you know, he's been bad these last few outings. Take him out. This has gone on for 5 years now. 5 years. I'm literally, genuinely convinced that 90% of the people who actually think Drew Smith is good just find him attractive. Not even joking. They just find him attractive. Like that's literally how I obviously see it. Now, in terms of this series, in terms of the offense, and I also want to like incorporate it in here, I want to obviously move on to what the Mets have been doing in June, because they have been one of the best offensive units since June began, which I believe May 30th was the first game after that team meeting. So basically since the team meeting, but I'm obviously going to say in terms of June. Now, when you look at the Mets offense, they have been killing it in the month of June. And they're second in batting average. They are 12th in walks. They are 7th in strikeouts. They are 3rd in isolated power, 6th in extra base hits. They are 8th in home runs. They are 3rd in OPS. They are 1st in weighted runs created plus, and they are 2nd in runs per game. Now, if you are looking at the Mets' top contributors, I put this obviously in 20 plate appearance minimum. Luis Torrens has obviously been the top contributor, but, you know, again, small samples, of course. Obviously, JD Martinez has been one of the main catalysts. Pretty much everybody has been an above-average bat, a plus bat, in this lineup in June, except for DJ Stewart, who did contribute, obviously, to one of these games in this series. So recently, he's looked a little bit better. And then there's Jeff McNeil with a 37 weighted runs created plus, basically just slogging through the rest of his career because he just got paid 2 years ago. And we already know the story about him. And then we also can go into the series rundown as well. Game 1, David Peterson, 6 innings, which we'll get into him later. 2-run ball, got to 100 pitches, 11 whiffs. You had tons of offense in this game. A 4-hit game by Lindor, a 3-hit game for Nimmo with a home run, 2 RBIs from Alonso, 2 for 6 with a home run, and DJ Stewart. Vientos, 3 for 5 with a double. Alvarez, 3 for 5. The Mets had 22 hits in general, 5 extra base hits against Texas pitching, 14-2 laugher in the first game. Second game, Luis Severino, he struggled through 6 1/3, but he was able to give you somewhat of distance. Wasn't a great start, started to struggle with the long ball, but the Mets offense came to play late and staged a comeback down 6-2. He had 3 for 5 with a homer from Vientos. Once again, another 3-hit game for him. An RBI from Bader, a home run from Nimmo to start the rally, an RBI from Lindor in the 6th on a little fielder's choice nubber, 2-run double by Alvarez to tie the game in the 8th, and the game winning RBI double in the 9th from Pete Alonso, 7-6 victory. June 19th, which was yesterday, the final game of the series. Minaya really struggled in that first inning, but he was able to get it together towards out the rest of it. Went 5 2/3, 3 earned runs, got knocked out in the 6th inning, as per usual. Hit from Lindor, a home run from Nimmo, a Marte RBI double to tie the game early. He had a 2-run homer from Alonso in the 6th inning to give them a 3-1 lead, and then Minaya got knocked around. Sean Reed fully surrendered a run, and then it was tied 3-3 eventually. And of course, as we were just talking about, Drew Smith gives up the 2-run homer in the 7th inning as he becomes the Ronald McDonald to the Grimace. But in terms of the offense, I obviously want to get into this because overall, as a unit, the Mets have really been really good in June. It's been one of the main contributors as to why they've been able to get on such a better stretch so far. What are you seeing from the offense, Frank, just in general as a team?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big thing is that's probably been the most frustrating thing about just this season is that, you look at the record and, we didn't, again, have the highest of expectations for this team, but we thought they could at least be over 500. I think that when you look at the roster itself, particularly in the lineup with the addition of JD Martinez, is that most of these guys have just been good offensive players in the past, and they weren't having good seasons. Like obviously Francisco Lindor got off to another slow start. It happens with him. Not the first time we've seen that. We saw Nimmo kind of struggle a little bit as the lineup was getting changed. Slumps happen. Pete obviously had not been himself for the majority of the season. Even a guy like Starling Marte, who was horrible last year, he's been much better this year. He hasn't been still the 2022 Marte, but he's still been way better than what he was last year. Mark Vientos has been a huge upgrade over Brett Beatty and a lot of other third basemen that the Mets have been using. That's just a fact. And Francisco Alvarez, he's quite a bit better than Omar Narvaez, particularly offensively, and maybe even more so defensively. But and then listen, Harrison Bader, as much as I criticize him, he's been an above average bat, which is something he's never done. So listen, I give him credit for that because I didn't think he had it in him. He's been above average. That's all you really need when so many of these other guys are being productive for you. So like you showed on that graphic, it just stands out so much that like all these guys are like here and Jeff McNeil, he's just like, he's so far off from everybody else. Like it's kind of funny. Like you'd want to feel bad for the guy when it's like you just see that everyone else is on such another level. But like you said, when you factor into the contract and the expectations, it's just insane. Like if he didn't even need to be average. Even if he was like slightly below average, I mean, even with him being that bad, the team has been one of the best offenses in the league. Even with him being that bad. Like imagine if the guy was just near average. They'd be, they'd be even better. So I think what you're seeing right now is just a team that has a lot of guys clicking at the same time. Finally, Rosie, mentions it right here. Martinez has been a fantastic addition. He's really added a new element to this team of being such a pure hitter. Like you don't really see a bad at bat from JD Martinez. Like it always feels like, you know what, he either he worked a count, he still put good bat on ball. Like it just feels like I don't know, he just always has a plan. Whereas a lot of these other guys, you'll just see who knows what they're even thinking, honestly, with a lot of the guys in this lineup. But when Lindor and Nimmo are doing their thing and you give JD Martinez and Pete Alonso a lot of opportunities, they're going to come through for you. When Marte's getting on base without Vientos and Alvarez swinging the bat, they're going to come through for you. So I just think that you're giving yourself such a good chance of scoring runs when you do have a much deeper lineup. And it just kind of makes pitchers approach everything a little differently when, we know that Brendan Nimmo is a guy that he draws a lot of walks. But if Lindor's already on base and I got JD Martinez right behind Brendan Nimmo, maybe I'm not in such a hurry to walk the guy. It's like, okay, maybe I kind of do need to give him a pitch to hit here because I don't want to face JD Martinez. And then I think on the flip side, then JD Martinez at the plate, you're like, oh, I don't really want to face Pete Alonso. And when Vientos at the plate, it's like, oh, do I really want to face Francisco Alvarez? They've just made it a lot tougher for pitchers where there's like we talk about like those easy outs or those breaks in the lineup. As much as I've been critical of having Alvarez bat 7th or 8th or wherever they put him, it deepens the lineup a lot to the point where the team isn't too top heavy offensively, and we still do have guys that could be contributors for us on that bottom half. And, when Iglesias was doing his thing when they faced all those left-handers and he was on another planet like this, there was really no outs for a pitcher. I mean, everybody was clicking. And that's how you see these outputs. I mean, when was the last time, if ever, we saw in the span of a few weeks where the Mets are getting like multiple like 20 hit games or near 20 hits, double-digit runs a lot, 7+ runs a lot. And not all against bad teams. Like there's been some, John Gray's been having a good season. Michael Lorenz has been having a good season, and they still put up very quality offensive numbers. Dylan Cease. When have we seen that? You're just seeing the Mets just do stuff that we have not seen, especially recently. So, I just think it's been very encouraging that, with Alvarez back, they're finally healthy offensively all at the same time. And it's like now that you're seeing all these guys click, you're just seeing the potential that they have. So, a lot of credit goes to Lindor for, for caring enough to call the meeting in the first place. Just being like, what, this has got to stop. As a leader of the team, I got to take initiative to just try to talk to everyone and see if we can make some changes here to the way we're approaching the game. So credit to Lindor, but then also credit to whether it was Mendoza or Stearns that changed the lineup and then changed it again. And now that they got this formula, they're sticking with it. Credit to them as well for being like, even though we've had success of like, when we were a playoff team, Marte hit second and, Alonso was blah, blah, blah. Like the fact that they have been willing to make those adjustments as needed, I think has just been really awesome for this team. And again, you're just seeing much better results on a daily basis. Far too many times it's like we see the Mets when they did score a bunch of runs, they just didn't show up the next day. It happened all the time. But it's like, you have a big offensive game against San Diego, you fly to Texas, and then you have a bigger offensive game. Like, we don't see that ever. So you're just seeing things that you haven't seen in the past. And, it goes credit. To me, the wild card is Vientos. I think he's the X factor because I know that I could get a good season out of obviously Lindor, Nimmo, Martinez, Alonso, sometimes Marte, even Alvarez to an extent. But it's like with someone like Vientos who hadn't proven it yet on a major league level. We talk so much about how Mets third basemen have just been below average offensively. The fact that you're actually getting very good production there finally is a huge thing. I mean, because we just didn't know what the future was. We've been saying trade him for years. We've said, you've screwed this guy a million times, minor leagues, DH, first base, can't play third, but all of a sudden he can. So just the fact that they have a guy that we weren't talking about as the starting third baseman in the offseason, in spring training, even going into the season. He was in the minor leagues because JD got here. And it's supposed to be Brett Beatty's job, and we hope Brett Beatty could figure it out. Well, no, Vientos just flat out stole the job from him and is doing a really good job with it. So to me, he's the X factor. I think he's been the guy that really has just changed the team because, again, deepening the lineup. We talk about the top four, but then we have Vientos kind of anchoring it, setting up Alvarez, and you see them back-to-back 3-hit games. Usually the young players like Alvarez driving in Vientos, just getting that extra piece of offense, I think is really taking them to the next level.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at the Mets offense, and I'll obviously go to you, Andrew, but, when I look at the Mets offense in June, it seems that they are 4th in swinging at pitches inside the strike zone. Not staring at that many pitches. Isn't that incredible? Like that'd be nice, like take the opportunity that you're given and like swing at the pitch inside the strike zone. That's a really crazy concept. They've been doing that a lot this week. And all it goes to credit for getting rid of Daniel Vogelbach, obviously. Yep. Andrew, what are you seeing from this offense? How do you like it?
Yeah, again, we all knew that, again, we started in the last series where the top 4 was hitting, and then, we got Alvarez back. He didn't look great in the San Diego series. This series, he has multiple 3-hit games. Same thing with Vientos. Again, it's not even the X factor, but again, the lengthening of this lineup, and you're getting decent value, at least in clutch moments from Harrison Bader, Starling Marte. He ain't giving you any value offensively, at least or defensively. He's giving you at least some offensively. So at least like he's not a complete net negative. That at least, okay, the occasional, he's still getting back. Is he back to that all-star form? No, but we all said in the offseason, if we got 60% of that, we'd take it in a heartbeat. And that's kind of what we've gotten. And yeah, is he not stealing bases? Sure. Again, his defense has been god-awful, but with the bat in his hand, he at least isn't an automatic out. Yes, the Make-A-Wish kid at second base, I mean, I couldn't stop laughing because it literally looked like when you had that graphic, everyone's hitting the shit out of the ball. And then you got the Make-A-Wish kid. And he hit a ball, I think it was in yesterday's game. Yeah, the pinched hit. He hit that fly ball to right. Any other guy in that thing, my head would automatically say, oh, shit, he got a hold of that. I knew as soon as Jeff McNeil, I thought, any other hitter, I would have been like, oh, it's a shot. That shit was just dying, a little weak-ass fly ball. And you see him rounding the bases like, oh, shit. I thought I got all of that. You could see it in his head. Well, I thought I got all of that. It fucking barely went halfway to right field.
I know what you're talking about. 88 miles an hour that was hit.
Yeah. Like,
by the way, that doesn't leave the park. If you're wondering, if 88 miles an hour, that doesn't leave the park. You're usually looking for like 100, 105 pulled fly ball, but yeah, whatever.
So again, and Alvarez, if he gets in, my dad was like, well, Alvarez only has 1 homer this year. Yeah, obviously he missed a bunch of the time. He has it for the power, but again, he has the clutch doubles. He had, a couple RBIs in game 1. You're seeing it, and we all know the power is going to come. But again, you're still getting that elite defense. So yeah, if you're getting I know Carson would probably hate it to get an all-around elite hitter compared to just the pure power. If, obviously we want the power more than we want the single and, the useless singles. But we know it's coming at the end of the year, we'll probably look and say, oh, he's still at 20. He'll get, maybe not 20, but at least 15. Be like, all right, that works. Again, just to see the off. And then Vientos, again, you're getting value from positions that the last 12 years we got nothing from. So, and we'll see, second base, Iglesias, he should, and again, we're fucking talking about Jose Iglesias in 2024. Like, that's how god-awful. I swear, Riley Bannon, Luke Ritter, anyone in Syracuse can at least give you what Jeff McNeil's giving you right now. Or better. And I get it, this isn't a McNeil. We've done that spiel. If you could get a legit, comparable, just average second baseman offensively, and then this lineup, who knows what this team could be offensively? If you can just get rid of that one black hole, you can, I know Keith was like, oh, there's not an easy out in this lineup. But I'm like, I know, Keith, you love Jeff McNeil, but I mean, if you can replace that, then there is no hole in this lineup. If, Bader's giving you the high leverage hits. I mean, I don't care, getting the leadoff single. If you're coming up and running some scoring position and you're getting your hits, that's all I care for. Marte, same thing. And then you have your bombers with Alvarez, Alonso, JD. Now Brandon Nemo's hitting home, multi-homer series for Nemo. Again, that's what a good offense is. And again, God forbid if this team keeps winning, there's a couple of bats that maybe you add at the deadline that you can get a legit, really good offense. Will they do that? That's up to be determined. Again, we're still on June 20th. But again, there's a world where this offense keeps hitting, and there's a world maybe you can make it better at the trade deadline, then maybe, there's a shot. But again, we're seeing some youth. It's not just the old vets that we expect. Now the youth is finally stepping up and providing you the value you need from it.
Yeah, and Alvarez,
this is a good,
even though
this is a good point from Douglas Barnes when he says, useless singles. What we mean by that, obviously, yes, the Mets had 22 hits like in that first game, like 17 of them were singles or whatever. I'd rather somebody make contact than K or strike out. What we mean by useless singles, we're talking about useless singles from Jeff McNeil, because the thing about singles is that singles are fine as long as you're a stolen base threat, because that can actually play into some league efficiency as an offense, right? So if the Mets had somebody, like let's say Luis Angel Acuna gets a bunch of singles, that has value because he can take second base, he can steal, he can take away the double play. In an uppercut league where a lot of guys hit the ball on the ground against a lot of stuff that's on the mound of ridiculous stuff that induces a lot of ground balls, such as sinkers just running in on your hands, right? So if McNeil gets a single, it really does limit the offense. It really can limit the offense because he's not going to steal, right? He's not going to get that many extra base hits. He doesn't hit for power. So he turns into a fringe 9-hole hitter. That's about it. And I kind of like my 9-hole hitters to steal as well, to set up the guys at the top, obviously, in runners in scoring position. So that's what we mean by useless singles, obviously. Different stuff. And the same thing goes with Bader, right? Bader gets these singles. He's able to steal, though. That's a different story. He's got the speed to do that, right? So that is kind of how I see it as a whole. For me, obviously, in a nutshell, I like guys who get extra base hits. I like power. Power is kind of what helps you win these days. But in terms of winning in those margins, in terms of stealing bases, you need a guy to be a stolen base threat if he's going to just full on, win from singles, Like you really, the way you can win in the margins is you need multiple tools from a guy. And all you're really getting from McNeil is contact, which hasn't even really been good contact in a while, right?
Yeah.
Anything else you want to add, Frank? I know you.
Yeah, I was gonna say just with
talk.
Alvarez, even though like the home run power hasn't been there, he's still hitting the ball insanely hard.
He got his career max exit velo the other night against Lorenzen, 115 miles an hour.
Yeah, there you go. Like that's. You need power to do that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like that translates. Like, once and I think the thing about Alvarez is that you're just seeing better at bats. Like the big hits that he got where he worked the count to 2-2, worked the count to 3-2. Like he's striking out last year. You know what I mean? Like I just think that to me, this is something I've noticed from Alvarez more so than a lot of the other catchers. I feel like now he's using the fact that he's a catcher to his advantage. I think that, you want to talk about maybe because he's seen he caught David Robertson. Maybe that's why he had a bit of an advantage against him. Maybe. But what I like about Alvarez is he's one of those catchers now that as soon as an outside corner pitch is called him, he turns up power and says, you're going to give me that one, right? Like, we're going to keep that same strike zone so that he's now using what he's doing as a catcher of knowing the umpire to now when he's at the plate, like, okay, these are the things that I'm going to know what to swing at, what not to swing at. You're just seeing a second-year player who didn't even, like...
He's 22.
Yeah, like, he doesn't look it, though. Like, the way he matures so quickly, and he doesn't look like a young catcher. This is a guy that looks like he's been here for a long time, and I just... his development, just how rapid it's been. I just give him so much credit for that.
He came up playing like a veteran, just like Conforto. Again, this is not useless. This is not, again, when we say useless singles, we mean, is the guy a stolen base threat, right? Is the guy a stolen base threat? Can he provide other tools after that contact? That's what we say in a nutshell in terms of winning in the margins. For me, I prefer just extra base hit after extra base hit, obviously. But when I say in terms of useless singles, I think that's being a little bit interpreted a little bit differently than it should be. Useless singles do exist when you're not a stolen base threat or you don't have any other tools. Like if you're just a contact hitter, can't use your legs, can't use your arms for power, you're limiting the team, right? You're limiting the lineup, whether you want to look at it or not, whether it looks like a hit in the newspaper or not. In terms of the philosophy, it doesn't help the team win. I'm talking about the team win, not in terms of Jeff McNeil getting his batting average every single hit that he gets. I mean, when I look at the Mets offense, I just see a more relaxed group. Like, I don't see this team really tensing up as much. I feel like when you look at the overall unit from top to bottom, I know we talk about, the hitting being contagious, but I just say that, like, it looks like we really have been able to kind of build off of the top of the lineup. And then also you've just really seen this spread throughout the entire lineup where, yes, of course it's a lot deeper, but also you just see kind of the guys who are the leaders, the guys who are the top guys, kind of just setting the example for everyone. And they were able to set that example. We talked about, Francisco Lindor, after that team meeting, has this big game, right? Same thing goes with Nimmo. Same thing goes with Martinez. We know he's a great clubhouse guy. Alonso's starting to come around a little bit, obviously. Still not where we want him to be. But I think that when you see, of course, the top guys get this thing going, it allows this lineup to be as deep as it is, obviously. Because these are the guys who are going to give you your extra base hits, who should be giving you your big hits. And, I think that, when in terms of those top four hitters that we have, it's really just been, if they start it, everyone else is going to help finish it. I mean, we saw Brandon Nimmo start up that rally right after they got put in that 6-2 hole, right? Francisco Lindor running out that infield single, because we all know that most of the stars won't run that thing out. Manny Machado, I'm looking at you. And then Pete Alonso, obviously getting that game-winning RBI, who's not clutch, and he's a tubby piece of shit.
He also put the Mets ahead yesterday, and it goes unnoticed because the bullpen. But that was a big hit at the time when no one could touch Andrew Heaney, and then Pete just hits a 2-run homer.
You obviously need your starters to lead, your top guys to lead by example, and they've done that well in this stretch. I think that they really have been doing that, obviously. Other things have to factor in. The pitching has to perform. The bullpen needs to lock things down. But in terms of the offense, you're seeing the results out there. In June, they have been one of the best offensive units. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been efficient. It's been good. And they've been able to be a little bit more aggressive, like I said, swinging in the zone as well, a little bit more. It's been very encouraging. Let's just say that. I think that overall, there's still flaws here. There always will be. There will be slumps. But none of it has been really that noticeable when they're able to pick each other up and play as a unit. The only one that's really noticeable, obviously, is the guy at second base, which we've talked about. It's an outlier. I mean, obviously, I can pop up this graphic again. He's basically a sore thumb in this, right? He's at the very bottom, a 37 weighted runs created plus, slugging 222 for God's sakes in June. I mean, DJ Stewart is DJ Stewart. He's not an everyday player, part-time guy. McNeil is the only everyday player on there, and he's obviously been slumping along. But I'm tired of talking about him at the end of the day. And this was, I think, put in. Frank, did you put this in?
Yeah, that was me.
If you want to add something to that, because that was tough.
Okay, so I'm actually going to get, because I saw someone else mention the defense earlier. I do want to talk about this. So a couple of things here. Let's start with the Vientos play, where the ball is hit sharply to the left side. Vientos goes to make a diving stop, makes contact with the ball. Most of the time when you do that, the ball does not shoot up into the sky and then fly over the shortstop and go into left field. That was just a weird bounce. That's hopefully the only time we'll ever see that this season. Like, that does not happen. So Vientos does not have great range, but he made the right baseball play, as in there's a runner at second. If I just throw my body out there and at least stop the ball, the run will not score. The fact that the ball just shot up and Lindor's trying to like Odell Beckham catch him with his bare hand, like that was just insane. That was just an insane play. Now the Alonso thing, all of the blame is not on Pete here. Starling Marte, in typical Starling Marte fashion, did not go all out of that ball. Old man Robbie Grossman should not be scoring from first, even with 2 outs. But what Marte
he scored from first?
Yeah. Scored from first with 2 outs. But what Marte did was he airmailed the cutoff man, which in this case was Jose Iglesias. That ball is supposed to go, even though Marte has a very strong arm, that throw that in that corner from that distance is supposed to go to the cutoff man. He missed Iglesias, so then Alonso was not positioned to be ready for a throw. He just catches it, and then he just has to turn around and fire it, which whether his feet were set, not set, the throw wasn't going to be good. But I think the fact that Marte made a horrible mistake made the throw look even worse than it would have been just on a normal play. So, the fact that that ball's supposed to go to Iglesias, Marte is just – he just doesn't make the routine smart baseball plays. It's just
I think they both shit their pants, but Pete should get a little bit more because it just –
but
when somebody is known for being as strong as he is, apparently he doesn't have the arm strength. Because I don't think he throws that hard.
I'm talking about the one throw. I every time P. Alonso throws the ball, it's a bad thing. But I just think that him having it on his back foot, not expecting the ball, made the throw look even worse. The throw had been bad regardless, but it wasn't going to sail over the catcher like that.
That was, I don't know. I think Marte is Marte. We've already discussed with his defense of how it's just made a negative impact for a long time. But yeah, I mean, Robbie Grossman scoring from first. I did not know that.
Marte,
I thought he was on second.
Where's the sense of urgency to really?
That's on Marte. The throw's on Pete.
Get it to the cutoff man, and then let's see what happens. I mean, because that's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, that's some brutal shit. But I mean, Vientos made the right play on that one. I mean, I'm not gonna. It just
and you know what? Like his range is not great, and that's the trade-off you take playing him at third base. You know that. You're well aware of that. I mean, at least he's making the routine plays. That's all he needs to do. With someone of Francisco Lindor's range and caliber next to him, that's all I need. If you just make routine plays and you're above average offensively, you're good. Like, you are fine on this team. Like, that's all they need out of third base.
I wish we had Beatty for that play, man. He was making so many of those great plays. Can we just have Beatty play the third base defense? And then
he hits, he plays defense. Fucking there you go.
Just like merge them and just like, yeah. So in terms of Vientos defensively, I mean, it's -1 defensive run saves, +1 at first, but he hasn't really done much there. Yeah. It all really just seems to be range. Yeah. That seems to be his issue.
And facing Imanaga tomorrow for the second time, it will be a good test for this offense. You know what I mean? Like, the offense has been great, but it's like, okay, going against a guy who is having a phenomenal season right now. We saw Luis Gil get destroyed by the Orioles. So listen, the Mets are not the Orioles, but anything could happen. You know what I mean? Like, guys are susceptible to bad starts. Wheeler got absolutely destroyed a few days ago. Like,
by Baltimore.
So this will be a good test. I mean, it's going to be in Wrigley, so that's never fun. But, I'm curious to see kind of how this offense – it's a left-hander. I want to see Iglesias in there. You know what I mean? Like, let's just kind of see how that goes. They just struggled against a left-hander in Heaney, but I am curious to see how that matchup goes.
Yeah, we'll see how this offense sustains, because I always have my concerns about it. I always will when it's being ran by a certain someone, which I'm not going to get into. But in terms of a certain someone that I have also not been pleased with for a long time, let's get into David Peterson. Now, David Peterson came off of a pretty good start against Texas. He wasn't perfect, but it was very encouraging to get 6 innings out of a starter. But overall, he was able to manage contact fairly well. And I want to actually give a little bit more of a breakdown of David Peterson, because We have talked about him very briefly and basically just disregarding calling him, a number 5 starter, or were we talking about just a depth starter, or me just saying that I just don't think he's that good at all. Let's get into an actual breakdown of David Peterson, because when we look at him starting off, coming back from surgery, hip surgery, which apparently has been a huge problem for him for a while. He comes back from hip surgery, and so far he's been solid. He hasn't been lights out. But in terms of what we have seen that's been better, the command, I would say, has improved. Yay, because I personally don't think it could have been any worse. As we all know, he's a sinker baller, gets a lot of ground balls, especially with the ground balls as of right now, 53.9% ground ball rate, which is 5th among qualifying starting pitchers, by the way, which is very impressive. He has a career high right now, 31.8% chase rate, which is in the 81st league percentile. The sinker's been a lot better. He hasn't been misplacing it as much, and he kind of needs that to be very good, because considering how his stuff is graded out, as you can see on the right side of the screen, for those of you who are listening, his stuff plus, it does not grade out fairly well. Overall, we all know that he's low 90s type of guy. In terms of the vertical approach angle, I'd say that, in terms of his fastball, 4.85 degrees of a vertical approach angle is pretty good for somebody who is at his stature, who's like 6'6", something like that. So that's a high release point. So that's pretty impressive, of course. And of course, he's more mainly using the glove side for most of his pitches, as you can see with the horizontal break. Lots of break on his changeup as compared to his sinker, and his curveball, which is not that good of a pitch, which he's going to have to fix up a little bit, because that's the only way his sinker is going to work. But obviously you can see it. And in terms of the bottom right, in terms of his previous seasons, started off with a solid campaign in his rookie year. Wasn't good in 2021. 2022 was pretty good. 2023 was not good. So it's been quite a flip-flop for David Peterson going into what he has been doing. It hasn't been amazing, but we have been able to get quality and competitive from him so far. It has been 4 starts since he's come back from injury. So here is your little first look here in terms of what David Peterson has been doing so far. Now, I think that the 3 of us would prefer Christian Scott up here. We prefer Jose Butto up here. I want to do a little bit more of a comparison as to last year to this year. David Peterson this year, just a full-on rundown. Frank, I'll go to you on this one. What are you seeing from David Peterson so far? Is there enough for him to just stay here for a while? What are you thinking with David Peterson right now?
Yeah, I mean, I think when it comes to Scott, listen, I'd take Scott over just about anybody in this rotation right now, maybe outside of Severino. When Sevy's going well, right now, I'd rather have Christian Scott. If they're in order to get Scott, you have to get rid of Quintana, I'm like, fine. It's in order to get Scott, you have to get rid of McGill or Pearson, I'm like, fine. I'm good with any of that. But with David, we know the big struggle for him has been the walks. That's gone a little better in this stretch. Yes. I think that's encouraging to see. But what's gone down significantly is the strikeouts. And the big key in that graphic you showed, his slider is just not his slider right now. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. When Peterson
this might be the wrong grade for his slider. I might have to double check. Well,
in general, it just hasn't been as effective. It's not getting the whiffs, the chases that it had been getting previously.
My apologies, guys.
But just in general, they've been talking about it constantly. That's Peterson's pitch is
114. It's 114. So it's still his best pitch, but it's definitely
still his best
decline.
Pitch, but it's decline. Not getting that was his put away pitch. That was his strikeout pitch, which right now it has not been. So with him not getting his strikeouts, that makes it a little tougher to use him as a starter every 5 days. I think, like we talked about with some of the infield defensive struggles and things like that, having a guy to get strikeouts is just really important. I mean, the best defense is strikeouts. That's really what it comes down to. It's the most sustainable. Like, you don't have to worry about fly balls in certain ballparks and wind and what have you. Like, get strikeouts. I mean, that's really the most important thing to do from the pitching side. So I think for David Peterson, it's so tough because and that's the other thing about the Mets facing Imanaga tomorrow. It's like Quintana's the one facing him, and it's like, who knows what we're going to get from that guy, because every time we're about to ride him out of town and just DFA him and eat that money, he turns out a good start in every he's once a month maybe or something like that. Like that's kind of what Quintana's been doing. So it's tough to be like, oh well, just once, if you call Buddha or whoever, Scott, Sprout, like whoever, like you're just saying, okay, now time to get rid of Peterson. And it's like, well, are we sure that we like there are other options that are technically better than Pearson that we wouldn't just send down or get rid of altogether instead? That's kind of where they're in a tough spot. And I think they were talking about, I'm pretty sure it was David Peterson. He's actually doing worse against left-handed hitters this year than right-handed hitters, which is definitely an issue if you did want to transition him to a bullpen role and you wanted to predominantly use him against left-handers. The one thing I will say, though, is that if you did move Peterson to the bullpen, at least you do have another guy that is capable of going those multiple innings, which to me, I like we talked about, the Mets, in a certain sense, they got kind of lucky last night. And when Sean Manaea threw 36 pitches in that first inning, if you told me that following that first inning, he was going to be at least pitching in the sixth inning, I would not have believed you. I'd have been like, no way. That guy, he's walking batters. He's hitting batters in 0-2 counts. He's not going deep into this game. You're maybe getting 3 innings at most. That was the way I felt. He was able to kind of, figure it out. But we've seen other times where that doesn't happen. And like we say, the Mets do have to kind of have these guys do long relief. And Adrian Hauser's done a good job with that. Sometimes Sean Foley can do it. But I think that if and here's my thing, it really just comes down to any way to get rid of Drew Smith. But when Nunez does not have a sinus infection, if I could use David Peterson as another guy who goes multiple innings so that I can use Nunez in a high leverage role instead and just get Drew Smith out of here, fine. That's how it is right now. I mean, it's like I'm just so over it that it's like I would rather just have David Peterson than Drew Smith. It's like, at least I don't know. It's just that's just the way it feels right now. It's like I could see, like we talk about, if you're not going to be a high leverage arm, well, what can I utilize this pitcher for? And it's like, okay, at least there are those other scenarios where with Peterson, there is something I could get out of him. Because like we talked about last week with Manaea, or, last episode, it's like if you go into the expectation that Manaea is probably only going 4 to 5 innings, like that, that. It's like, okay, now I could go Peterson 2 innings and it's fine. Like it's not going to tire him out. It's not going to be overwork or whatever. And now I could just go Garrett Diaz or, whatever combination Diaz, like, and that's a totally fine game plan. But until Scott gets back, they're kind of still with him. Ever since these two guys have been here, McGill and Peterson, we have this conversation all the time. Like, I mean, for years we've had this conversation, Peterson and McGill. And it's because neither one of the guys have ever been like fully healthy and consistent to establish like, no, this is the guy. They got to be there every 5 days. It's always just like an injury or a bad start or both. So right now it's like they have been winning, and I don't know. I wish I kind of knew the number for Scott as far as like, okay, this is the cutoff. Like, give me a timetable, give me a date that I'm like, okay, if I need to wait until, let's say the day is like July 18th for Christian Scott to be here, fine. I'll stick with this rotation until then. And by that point, maybe we'll have a better idea of like, okay, Peterson has not been able to strike out batters. He needs to go. Or, hey, McGill is struggling again. He needs to get whatever. Like, but the way I see it is that, right now with this win streak and what have you, like the Mets are literally right there. And it's going to be in a situation where, there are going to be days where they're a game out. There's going to be days where they're half game out. There's going to be days where they have a wild card spot. Like with this many teams being involved and all these teams playing each other, you're always going to gain ground or lose ground depending on your results of your game. So I just feel like you're in it right now. And if you're truly going to actually do something to kind of elevate yourself over another team, it's because Christian Scott's in your rotation and he's actually a big time contributor for you. So they have got to get him back on this roster some way, somehow. I don't know when that date is. I hope it's soon. But the fact that we've just been so in the dark with it and just like, here, you got to see him for a few starts and now you don't know when you're going to see him, because the original report was, oh, well, it's London. There's going to be off days or whatever. Once London's done, he'll be right back. We haven't heard anything at all about when
he's made 2 starts since then, right?
And what bothers me is that, well, not that it bothers me, but what my concern is that in the minors right now, he's doing like 60 pitches or so, 3 1/3 innings, 3 2/3 innings, whatever. When he gets back here, it's not to throw 60 pitches. It's not to throw 3 2/3 innings. So how are you going to build his arm back up to be ready to be like, no, we need 6 innings, we need 7 innings, we need 97 pitches? How do you just turn it from one start 60 pitches, you're going 66, 60, to just bam, 97, and you're trying to protect the young arm? That's not how you do it. That is not the right way to get it done. So I just still think the way that it's like, here's him for a few starts and then you don't see him. Like, I would have rather that they just waited to call him up to then for him to stay up. I still don't get that part of it, of the fact that they were so quick to send him down and be like, oh, wait, no, we got to limit the innings. It's like, well, why did we even see him in the first place? It's just, I don't know. I just thought it was kind of a waste to do that to him. So listen, I don't know what's going to happen because, like I said, it's like when you see Quintana have a start where he goes only a few innings and gives up 5 runs, you're like, we got to get him out of this rotation. But then when Manaea has a start when he goes a few innings, it's like, oh, well, he's the guy that needs to go. It's kind of like we talk about the bullpen. It's like when Diekman has a bad outing, it's like, oh, we got to DFA Diekman and get Danny Young up here. When Ottavino is doing Ottavino things, it's like, oh, Ottavino's got to go. We got to get, like, if you only have one Danny Young and you only have one Christian Scott. So it's like, for somebody else to go to get them here, it's like, that's kind of the tough part, is that you're trying to decide, it's like, who's the worst option of the 3 that goes to then make the move. That's the thing, is that like, if they had more options in the bullpen for the minor league, I feel like Diekman and Otto would be gone. I would hope, you know what I mean? But I just feel like right now it's like, okay, well, do you want Budo instead of Quintana? You know what I mean? Like, it's like all these questions that it's an interesting one where, they've kind of had this philosophy of like, they stick with the veterans. So it's like, Diekman, Ottavino, Quintana, like they stick with the older guys, the guys that have the bigger contracts, instead of utilizing the young players or younger players, guys with less experience. So I don't know what they're going to do, until they actually make a roster move. I feel like it's going to be Peterson and McGill, regardless of performance. Like, I feel like they're going to be here until that day is, which, again, we don't know when. That's the thing that really bothers me. It could be next week. It could be next month. It could be 2 months. We have no idea. They have not said anything. So I don't know why, if you have this special plan, why it needs to be kept so secret. Because why? Like, why can we not know when we should expect Christian Scott back? Why can we not know what the innings number is? I don't know why this has to be top secret information where everybody's like, does Scott know the number? You know what I mean? Like, again, I just don't understand the approach of like, here's 3 innings, 60 pitches in the minor leagues, and now go be a full-time starter again with max workload. How? That like, where, like, because when are you going to, you have to build them up in the minors. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying there has to be a timeline of like, okay, now we're starting to build them up a little bit in the minors, and now we're going to put them back in the major leagues. Because with the way the Mets bullpen is set up and starters, we can't afford to go into a game knowing we're getting 3 innings out of a starting pitcher. You can't do that. This team is not, the way this bullpen has been used, you cannot go into a game like that. So again, it's not going to be 5 days, 60 pitches, and then the next 5 days, 97. Like there has to be some kind of build-up process that leads into his call-up. So to me, I've been confused the whole time. And as the days go on, no updates, I continue to be more confused. So for the time being, like it's still Peterson.
Yeah, obviously, Peterson, I don't know how much of a placeholder they look at him as, or they just actually see him as a legitimate piece to the back end part of the rotation. Either way, when you look at it as, all the options that they have, I think that when you look at it when you look at it for, all the options that they have. I mean, we've obviously talked about the six-man rotation. That's probably, going in terms of just, trying to build up these arms. That's probably the best way that they can probably put it if they were to bring up somebody like Christian Scott. I just don't really see that benefiting somebody like, David Peterson, or benefiting somebody like, what's his name? In terms of like, Quintana or something like that. Like I don't see that benefiting many of these guys who haven't been very like effective on whether it's 6 days rest or 5 days rest. So it's weird to see that they don't see it as whether it's a replacement or an addition when they talk about Christian Scott. So it's weird. I think that eventually we will figure it out. We're going to see him up here eventually. But in terms of David Peterson, do you feel the same way about him, Andrew? What do you think? Has anything changed from what you've seen? The same guy?
I mean, yeah, I'm not going to be jumping the gun of, he went 6 innings and pitched a game when the Mets were killing the shit. Like, he had no pressure at all. You got, like, 55 runs of support. Just pitch. I mean, yes, he's going to get more life just because of being left-handed. And, again, would I mind, like I said last week, put 2 long men in the bullpen. Like, especially if you're going to have 2 – if 3 fits your rotation or 5 and fly guys – how do you not have a second? Hauser has been better, and yes, to have him that can eat 2 innings. If Chandra Fuller is going to be high leverage on him, no longer doing the multi-inning, appearances, then you need another guy who can give you 2 to 3. And if if Kodai Senga ever gets healthy, and if they can add, Scott and bring Budo back, have as many guys for Manaea, Mendoza to say, okay, let's. If I got Manaea's going this night, if I could put him and Budo together, and then the next start have Quintana with Scott, or if Scott's going full, obviously I think once Scott's back here, he should have a guaranteed spot. Can you shut the fuck up? Sorry, but yeah, again, like the fact that you have so many guys in this rotation that aren't reliable to give you deep into games, even if David Peterson is one of the starters, which I don't think you should. I mean, yeah, he pitched nice last game again, and now he's kind of turning into every other year being good. So next year he'll suck, and then the next year he'll be great. Who really cares? I've always just seen him as a 5 and depth rotation guy, and that's what he is. And the fact that like the first round, I don't really you give a shit about it. Yeah, you got a first round pick. That whole draft sucked. Like that whole draft has been awful. So again, yes, being a first round pick, you want more than just a 5-starter. But for what he is, I'm not, Tyler McGill, him, Jose Budo, we're comparing, red grapes to green grapes. They're all grapes. They all taste semi the same. They're all just different colors. Like, there's not a drastic where, this guy's throwing 100 compared to this guy's. They're all 94, 95, just depth arms. And that's not a bad thing. Every good team needs them. The Rays make like 90 of them. Like, yeah, they throw 97, but, like, it's good to have the guys. They just shouldn't be guaranteed rotation spots. They should be used at what they are and his depth. So, again, once Scott gets back up here, we'll see. They've been very aggressive with the pitchers. Maybe if Brandon Sproat keeps just dominating AA, maybe we have that conversation in the end of August and September. Maybe you see him and you can. It's more options. I think that's more next year than reality, but again, if he just keeps dominating, you got to at least have a conversation about it. I'm not losing my shit for David Peterson. He's nice. He's fine. They need innings. So if you can give me, 5 to 6 every game, sure. But again, I'm not losing my shit for a guy who's just a back end guy.
Yeah, obviously, I think that when you break down David Peterson, it's not just in terms of the identity. I think that it's just in terms of what you can really expect from him. I think that in terms of the expectation that came with him in the beginning, it continues to lower and lower and lower. Like, I'm not expecting him to be good. I am expecting him to be somewhat of a refined pitcher because, like, it's been known, like, to have, like, these adjustments under a guy like David Stearns. Like, I think that that's one thing you can consider. You've seen an adjustment in terms of, like, Luis Severino, more of a sinker ball pitcher. The adjustments have been made by Sean Manaea, of course. We all know about him with Driveline. Even Drew Smith has some new pitches, whether we think he's good or not. Reed Garrett, good reinvention as well. We see Adam Ottavino tweaking things in and out. With David Peterson, if I pop this up again, this is the same pitcher from the last, 4 years? Like, I think that he just doesn't really seem like this. Like, there isn't really any changes that are made. And it's basically just the same mediocre pitcher. Like, I really would like to see adjustments being made. And there was a lot of things that were adjusted in terms of a lot of our pitchers. But for some reason, there really isn't the same thing. It's really just the same thing under David Peterson. Like, there really isn't. There really just is. It's just really, there's no initiative for him to be better. And that's what kind of frustrates me. But in terms of the start he had this week, it was fine. I mean, that was the sharpest I've seen him in a while. He obviously missed a lot of time, but there still are better options that don't really merit me to just go off of the results of what I've seen from David Peterson. I think that if he wants to be a member of a 6-man rotation, sure. But in terms of like a 5-man rotation, him being the number 5, the solidified number 5, it is definitely a lot more interchangeable as compared to, what he has been talked about and talked up to be. I think that time has just completely gone past. Now, in terms of young pitching that we have talked about, in terms of possible rotation pieces, let's get into the prospect spotlight, which we're going to probably do. I mean, we did this last show, but we'll do this every single time because there's a lot of young talent in this farm system. There's a youth movement definitely coming up for the next few years. Of course, with the Mets being the oldest team in baseball, you hope that there is some young pieces on the horizon, and there definitely are. The one that is probably one of the closest, that being Brandon Sproat, who actually is starting right now for Double-A Binghamton. He struggled a little bit to start off this game, but it looks like he's settling in a little bit. But in terms of what we've seen from Brandon Sproat so far, he's been pretty much dominant. And when I'd say dominant, I mean dominant. Obviously, out of the University of Florida, the Mets picked him in the draft for a second time after he didn't sign with them 2 years ago. And this year, he's pretty much been off and running. He started off in Brooklyn, and now he's up to Binghamton. And obviously, you can see the numbers, a 1.31 earned run average. You can't really complain about that. There was a lot of walks in High A Brooklyn, but in terms of Double A Brooklyn, that hasn't really been much of the case. And of course, we all know that he has the 65 graded fastball and a sinker that can reach 101 to 102, get a lot of strikeouts. The control was seen as an issue at the beginning in terms of the consistency of his pitches, but it seems to have evened out fairly well so far this year. Of course, getting ground balls at a clip of 54.3%, that's always great. Obviously, as a sinker baller, you get more of these ground balls as to tend to like guys like David Peterson, and when Quintana is actually right or when Quintana was actually good. a lot of these sinker ballers, they rely on a lot of the ground balls. But, of course, Brandon Sproat with the extra velocity, he also can get a lot of whiffs and a lot of strikeouts. As you can see, a 34% K rate so far this season across Brooklyn and Double-A. He's currently ranked on Pipeline as the Mets' 13th overall prospect, but I think he's way higher than that as of right now. Overall, Brandon Sproat, he's had an incredible season so far. I'm hoping to see him up here this year because obviously he's 23 years old. I don't want to see him be wasting these bullets anymore on these minor league players. Obviously, we all know how I feel about AAA in terms of that hitting environment. But with Brandon Sproat, I do know there is one concern that I will get to. But in terms of what you're seeing, Andrew, I'll go to you. What do you think of my guy here? Which I was, again, for those of you who know who I was very upset when they did not sign him the first time. But they got him again. Andrew, what do you think about Brandon Sproat so far? What's the outlook for him?
Yeah, it's definitely impressive and jumping from A-plus ball to Binghamton and just getting better. Like I said, the walk issue was a little bit of an issue in Brooklyn. He jumps a level and like the first four starts, it seemed like he was untouchable. And today maybe he got hit up a little bit. I was watching the Syracuse game more than I was watching the Binghamton game. But yeah, the fastball in electric stuff at 100. Again, look at the Mets' current rotation and, past prospects. Besides Bryce Montes de Oca, like, have we developed a guy that's throwing 100 miles an hour? It seems like, they just can't do that. So to have that as a guy is definitely exciting. Do we see him this year? Probably not. I think this is more of a next year maybe, and they're going to do but I say that, but again, Stearns has been relatively, with guys like Nolan McLean, like Brandon Sproat, like Tidwell, they're moving these guys up faster than normal past Mets regimes. They've been moving these guys up system by system, I guess hitting some certain quotas or whatever, and it's good to see. But I don't think you'll see Brandon this year. Again, this is probably next year. Again, barring he just continues to mow down guys in Double-A, which, again, today we'll see. Again, it wasn't the greatest start, but again, not a guy who's like, this is a guy, him and Hidden Blade Tidwell, these are your two better than David Peterson's. Like, these are the two guys. Once these guys, David Peterson's and the McGills are dead, moved on. This is the next class. And then there's even more guys behind them that could be, filling, down the line and starting to see a pitching. Finally, the Mets going back to a decent pitching factory with some upside on. We'll see if David Stearns takes any more, goes international and international signings, and obviously in the MLB draft, just to see some more pitching throughout the system. Because again, pitching's expensive on the free agent market. We're seeing it very clearly where Yamamoto is getting $300 million without even touching a Major League Baseball. So the price of pitching is going up. So if you can develop your own and get it cheaply, gives you the ability to spend elsewhere, and having guys like Sproat, Tidwell, maybe Josh Tong, we'll see what else, a couple other guys throughout the system. It's good to see.
Oh, yeah. I mean, when you look at this pitching depth throughout the entire minor leagues, I mean, you have guys who are high draft picks who have been fairly impressive so far this year, some at different levels, of course, Sproat and Tidwell being the guys who kind of stand out, of course. Dominic Hamill has been the only one who's really, truly struggled this year. He's looked a little bit better recently, but he still has a long way to go. Again, AAA, hitting environment, whatever, but he's definitely had a big walk problem. Even some guys in Brooklyn as well, where, Jonah Tong has been very impressive so far. He has slowed down a little bit. Guys like Cade Morris, who I got to see live for Brooklyn earlier this week. Pretty good, got knocked out, got roughed up, but overall he's been having a solid campaign. Guys that we don't even really talk about as much, like Tyler Stewart as well. Calvin Ziegler obviously got hurt. He won't be here for a while, out for a while. Nolan McLean, the electric stuff, of course. But in terms of Brandon Sproat, I think that the main concern is obviously going to be the volume for him and not being able to really work these deep into the games. Now, he did have 3 consecutive starts of pitching 7 innings, so he was able to go deep into these games, but we've definitely seen quite a few 4-inning outings. We've seen a few 3-inning outings. He was not able to maneuver himself out of the fourth inning, the last start that he had, not the one that he's partaking in right now. For him, I think that he'll probably go another like inning or two. He's at 56 pitches as we're currently recording this. He's gone through 56 pitches in 4 innings. So I think that the volume, it's going to be kind of hit and miss. But overall, the strikeout numbers, we know that we love to get the best defense in terms of strikeouts, and he definitely brings that to you. In terms of contact, again, he's able to keep the ball on the ground. There really has not been many home run issues with him either so far. So as long as he's able to make those pitches, he's going to progress through this minor league system even faster than he already has. Frank, I know that you like Sproat a lot. You've been very impressed with him so far. What are you seeing in terms of him and his future with this team, the trajectory he is on? He's been very impressive.
Yeah, I mean, what is there not to like? That's kind of the way I see it. It's just that it's like, when you're looking at pitchers, just not even looking at the advanced stuff, but just in a vacuum, it's like, okay, starting pitcher throwing over 100 miles an hour. Most of them don't. Most of the Mets bullpen doesn't. So it's like that off the bat already. It's like, okay, check. Like that's a good sign. But now here's the next one. How often does a pitcher throw 100 miles an hour, but also doesn't have a walk problem? Now you're in even more elite company. It's like, okay, let's check off that. Next one, not a home run problem. So it's like to get those 3 things in a combination, very rare. So this is not just your typical good pitching prospect, good ERA, good this, good that. It's like, no, this guy has elite stuff, but is able to actually command it. Doesn't happen. And again, the trajectory of him actually being in the minor leagues, the way it's like, okay, let's bump up the competition, and then the guy just gets better. Like those are the signs of like those prospects that it's like, oh, well, wait a second. It's like we just up the competition and they just continue to improve. Like again, the guy has just been doing everything you could possibly want from a starting pitcher. And it's more so just the fact of like, because he's so young is the only reason why he's not here. Like, it's not that he has any struggles or any concerns. Like, I mean, you're gonna have like concern you're gonna talk about, but I just think that like we look at, who is the flavor of the month or of the year this year with a rookie pitcher? It's Paul Skeens. It's like, oh, well, here's a guy, he throws 100 miles an hour. Most starting pitchers don't do that, whatever. It's like people go crazy over stuff like that. And is he going to be Paul Skeens? No. But as far as like we look at what this Mets rotation has, and like we talk about Quintana struggling to hit 90 miles an hour, it's like, here's a guy just giving you a totally different look. And when we talk about, what wins championships, what do good playoff teams have? It's power pitching, it's power hitting. And you know what? This, like I always say, the scenario where the Mets are actually a decent team is when the combination of Scott, Sproat, and hopefully Tidwell, if somehow Senga's still here too, you got a good chance in just about any game if all those guys are clicking. We saw Scott, he looked good. And, I'm hoping for the same thing with the next 2 on the way. If that happens and, like the young players doing the thing, like, Alvarez, Vientos, what have you, if one of the 2 smaller second baseman guys give you anything and Drew gives you something or Clifford gives you something and you got Steve Cohen's money, you're going to be adding a star here or there. And the bullpen, you just got to figure out the bullpen at that point. Like there is a scenario where you have a lot of good things going from you from within at really low salary numbers, especially with the pitching. Like we say, pitching is so expensive. So the best way to build a winner is homegrown pitching talent and, or young pitching talent through the minor leagues, even if it's via trade. What I always go back to is the 2015 Mets. It's like, okay, now give me a young starting rotation without having the Wilpons. I can actually spend money and make meaningful additions to the team. Like, that's how you build that window that we're looking for, that window of success of, okay, you're in the postseason year in, year out. It's going to have to be through the pitching. So for me, it's like they need it to work out. I hope it works out. And I haven't seen any reason why it wouldn't. You know what I mean? I just think that, again, if the way I look at it is like if most starting pitchers could throw 100 miles an hour, they would, but they don't. They can't. It's like you either got it or you don't. Like it's something that you could try to do drive line and you could try to do some things with your mechanics to try to up your velocity a little bit, but stuff like that doesn't just
not
happen.
Everybody can
perfect like it doesn't.
You know,
listen,
like
it
not
doesn't
everybody can
just
go from
happen.
94 to 102. You know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It doesn't just happen, and you have control. Like that combination just isn't. It's just not normal. You know what I mean? So I just think the Mets, they have a gem right now, and I'm excited. You know, I just think that, you know, what is there not to like? To me, he checks all the boxes.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's really, really encouraging to see a lot of these young arms from top to bottom. I mean, we've seen from the younger stages of guys who are in their 20s to guys who are like 22, 21 to, you know, 23, 24, you know, in terms of like Christian Scott, of course, at the top levels. Vassell and Hamill, like we've said, they've both kind of struggled. But Tidwell, Sproat, you know, McLean has been very impressive. Jonah Tong has been very impressive. Cade Morris has been solid. There's also been some really good guys who, like maybe they are just back end rotation guys, but they're young, and you can basically just cycle it where if you get injuries in pitching, which is a very injured position, the most injured position in all of sports, in my opinion, when you look at it from there, when you go to a team like the Dodgers or maybe the Rays at their peak, shall we say, or go to look at a team like the Astros, they never run out of these pitching options. They may not be as good as the guy who got injured, but they give you quality. They're able to maximize that. And when you have the floor of a guy like Brandon Sproat, who would come in here, I mean, at his best, at that 50th percentile, this guy's going to get a lot of punch outs. The stuff that the guy has is remarkable, right? Obviously, he needs to apply it. I need to see, you know, somewhat of consistency of where this guy can actually stay healthy, because I think that there is going to be some injury concerns, whether you're looking at him at being 23 or 26 or 28. A guy who throws that hard, there always are going to be injury concerns. There never is not. I feel like the only guy that you can talk about that is Garrett Cole, maybe.
And
he's had injury concerns this year.
Yeah, he just came back.
So you just never know. Again, I want them to be cautious with this. He's another guy. With Sproat, again, also with Scott, if they need to limit the innings and do like that type of thing, just to like bring up their arms and not rush them completely, I'm fine with that, obviously. Just build it up. Catch the lightning in the bottle when you need to. And, you know, just continue that pace. And I'm really, really excited, especially with who is joining David Stearns in the draft room. I forget what is his name, Gross, right? Chris Gross. He was one of the main architects behind that Houston pitching pitching organization. I don't know if he had something with Tampa Bay, but he was also along with Stearns, and they've drafted very well in terms of pitching. And when the Mets have this where they haven't really been able to develop hitters that well consistently, they've had a few gems, but nothing flowing. The best way to win in the margins is with your pitching, is to win with tools, right? And again, at his floor, Brandon Sproat, he can be a really dominant pitcher. I'm really hoping that it works out as a starter for him. I'm hoping that we get, more innings from him. He gets to build up his arms, and I hope we see him up here real soon, because I think this kid, I mean, I personally think he's one of the best pitching prospects in baseball.
I got his negative now that we're on the conversation.
What's the negative?
He hasn't had Tommy John surgery yet.
He has not had Tommy John surgery.
It's like, unfortunately, it's bound to happen.
Yeah,
like it's honestly, it's a prerequisite, especially like at that stuff. It's going to happen. But the good news is that we live in 2024, where you know what, medicine, technology's come a long way to where it's not the feared injury it once was. Back in the day, when the guy had Tommy John, it's like, oh boy. But now it seems like some guys, they come back, they turn out better. You know what I mean? Like, we're like, like now you got out the way. Now you should be good to go. So it's going to happen, you know, but that's just the nature of the game right now. You know, it just kind of is what it is.
And they will move on from that. Yeah. If it happens, they will move on from that, and they will go from there. You know, you never know. Again, I think that at the end of the day, it'll eventually happen. It's the wear down on the arm. We always say, I mean, it's not really the fact that it's all just velocity. Velocity definitely hurts that chance. Mm-hmm. It's the fact that pitching,
to do that. Like,
pitching will always be in a regular motion. That always will be in a regular motion, and doing that at the force that they do in the pro level, it just happens. And whether you're going to change, and the only way to really fix that completely is to change the rules to you can only throw underhand, right? So unless you want baseball completely disbanded to stop these arm injuries, you're going to get them, right? It's just going to happen, and hopefully the Mets do the right, approaches with this, and they don't screw anything, because we've seen them do that before. But under the guy that we are under right now, hopefully it will be a little bit better this time. Anything else you want to add on Sproat? Andrew? No, guys, nothing. Okay, well, let's move ahead to studs and duds that we all love so much. The Mets win this series. Could have swept, but hey, Drew Smith happened. Studs and duds. Frank, I'll start with you on studs.
Yeah, I'm going to give it to the guy who, maybe he didn't have technically the best series statistically, but I think, what he did was very impactful. And, that's Pete Alonso. I'm going to give him credit. He's been criticized by everybody, by us. But the hits that he got were the big hits. He got the go-ahead hit the game the Mets won. He had the go-ahead hit yesterday until Drew Smith and Sean Reed Foley happened. So, we talk about, doing it when it matters. We had the whole segment about he hasn't been performing in the clutch this year, like the way he has in years past, hasn't performing in high leverage. He got it done this time around. And even going back a little further, he also got the big hit against San Diego, that ground ball that, went past Solano. He's been getting the big hits lately, and that's what you need if you're going to be a big money guy. Big time money players need to make big time plays. And you know what? Late in games lately, he's been doing that. So, like I said, we've been here to criticize him when he hasn't been getting the job done. So he deserves credit when he does get the job done.
All right. Andrew, who's your stud?
Well, I can't believe Frank didn't pick this guy. I'm surprised Frank picked the white guy. So I'm going to go, obviously, Francisco Alvarez. Getting him going. Because, again, obviously 3 hits, 3 RBIs in the blowout as the big game-tying two-run double in Game 2 of the series. Again, he is, how you said, Ventos is the X factor. He needs to be consistent, and you saw, obviously, defensively all year he's been great. We've kind of been waiting for the bat to wake up. Hopefully this is the start of it, and seeing a couple of multi-hit, 3-hit games, and again, a clutch, big, high-risk, 2-run double in late innings. Give it to Francisco Alvarez.
All right, I'm going to go with Brandon Nimmo because he looks a lot like Brandon Nimmo again. I saw somebody in the chat say that Brandon Nimmo doesn't walk that much. That's not true. 87th percentile. So that's.
Well, he's used to the 99. So it is kind of
used to 99.
Yeah, he's not walking as much.
He's not walking. He ain't walking as much. Average. But yeah, I'll take the power and the extra base hits over that. And again, Alvarez is another good point. I mean, starters have just been so good with him. It's really crazy in terms of Alvarez because. You always just see people praise Alvarez. They're like, credit to him for coming out to the mound and changing the strategy or whatever. You're really seeing him be a very innovative leader on the field, just day in and day out. And you
even
can just
those
see
little things
the overall
where,
impact.
with Sean Foley, it ended up not working that much. But there was even a time where he didn't necessarily go to the mound, but you see, he'll kind of take a couple steps forward and like he'll slowly throw the ball back, or like he still is able to slow the game down without having to utilize those coveted timeouts, so to speak.
Yeah.
Like, again, his feel for the game of like he was giving it to the umpire yesterday. They ended up joking as the game went along, but that ump had a bad night last night. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And Francisco, while he was pitching, while he was catching, while he was hitting, like he was still in that constant dialogue of like, you know, what are we doing here? You know, so again, I think, you know, just as the time goes on, he just more and more, he looks like a veteran out there, especially for the catcher position, which is just not common.
Yeah. I mean, you need the most intangibles from the catcher position. I mean, that's where it comes down to. And he has displayed that way beyond what we have expected him to do at the major league level at such a young age. I mean, he makes such a big impact, and we know that eventually the bat can come along, but overall, just as a catcher in general, at the age that he's at, it's really impressive again. And, you know, even, you know, outside like vets, like Scherzer speaking praises, even though I don't want to listen to Scherzer ever. But, you know, in terms of like, you know, Alvarez, and hopefully we do get the bat going, but Nimmo, again, just looking like Nimmo as well, displaying some of the powers. And I think that, you know, him batting second is a little bit more comforting for him. He can kind of mix up the contact and the power fairly well. And, you know, there's a little less swing and miss and more just like swing at the pitches that you get, which is what Brandon Nimmo does. You know, we were seeing him stare at a lot of pitches in that stretch that he was struggling in. Andrew, you're looking at me like...
Yeah, Luis Angel Acuna is being talked to the trainer as we speak. So he's just stole third and just kind of fucked up his shoulder. So that's just, yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Well, McNeil's immortal.
Jets
out.
He's staying in the game. He's staying in the game. So he kind of just
he's staying in the game.
Third and fucking, yeah.
So we'll look for an update on that. Hopefully, nothing too serious.
He's in the game. He's still playing. He's fine.
Let's get to the duds.
Can we all just say it one time to save us 36 seconds? We all say the same name because it's the same name.
I don't have the same name.
Yeah, well, I was going to say I actually have a second name as well.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so I'll start off. I don't think this is part of the rules, but can I give it to Jeremy Hefner? Is that an option? Because what I don't get is that, like, I want to be hard on Sean Reid-Foley, right? But as the freaking broadcast is saying constantly, something just seems up with Sean Reid-Foley. His delivery's not right. The velocity's down. And Hefner is talking to the trainer in the dugout, but does not go out there to be like, are you okay? Do we need to take you out of the game? What? Like, why are the broadcasters doing a better job than the freaking pitching coach when it is your job? Why are they doing your job better than yours? Why? Why have you been here so long through all the different regimes, managers, general managers? He's like Drew Smith. Him and Drew Smith are immortal. They survive anything. If there was a hurricane, those were the two guys to be ones that live because they can survive anything. Like, I just don't get how, like, he's talking to the trainer. What are you talking about? How did we get no update about Sean Reid-Foley after the game? Is he okay? We don't know. You didn't go check. You just chatted with the trainer. What were you guys talking about? Dinner plans? Like, not actually going out there to be like, my pitcher is struggling.
Hey, have you seen some of the food at that Texas stadium? I mean,
that these guys way up top see that something's up, but me right here, I can't do anything about it. What are we doing? Like, come on. And it's like we talk about all the time. It's always Alvarez that has to have the mound visit. It's always Lindor that has to have the mound visit. Like, they have such a better feel for the game than the guy who it's literally his job to have the feel for. How is that possible? How does the second-year player have a better feel for the pitchers than the coach? How? It drives me nuts that I'm like, oh, is Sean Reid-Foley okay? Like, is he going to need to go on the injury list or whatever? No idea. Like, so what were you guys having that deep dialogue about? Just chatting to the trainer. Like, hello? What was that? it was so strange to me.
I think, I mean, we've talked about Jeremy Hafner before of like not really having a feel for the mental game as compared to, that's the physical game and also the mental game as well. Sean Reed Foley, if he's healthy with a walk problem, he's going to be unhealthy with a walk problem as well. So definitely not a recipe for success. Let's just say that. Andrew, you got a dud?
You know what? Narrative ball clears all. Luis Severino, 6 runs. Come on.
Yeah.
The obvious answer is Drew Smith.
I was going to pick Severino, so I don't know how that's narrative ball because he didn't pitch well.
Well, because guys were supposed to be
I forgot.
Well, this guy's supposed to be the second coming of Jesus. There you go. Guy gets roughed up by an offense that's been ice cold and gives him 6 runs. We'll see if Acuna's still in the game. He was at that talk to turn after it came ending over. But yeah, again, Severino just doesn't have a good start against an offense that was anemic. It's a blemish on a good year. Will he probably bounce back? Yeah. So I definitely not the greatest start. Hopefully this isn't a trend, but it's just one outlier in Texas, and hopefully move on.
I mean, I guess I'll go with the guy we talked about, gave an entire segment because he's the only one left. I mean, you could also throw McNeil in there because he's obviously doing nothing. But yeah, I mean, Drew Smith, we've said this already. I'm not even going to go back if you want. For those of you listening, watching, go back, rewind. You'll see our feelings about Drew Smith, or just look at like any freaking episode of this podcast. I mean, it's enough already. Who cares? All right. So injury report. We got 2 main guys, of course. Kodai Senga threw a 30-plus pitch bullpen session on Wednesday afternoon. He's on pace to face live hitters next week, which is either going to be Sunday or Monday, according to Carlos Mendoza. We still don't know when his rehab assignment will be. That timeline is still unknown. They're continuing to take it slow with Senga, but obviously we do know that he will be back after the All-Star break as opposed to before it. And then Danel Nunez, which we got the news, who was unavailable to pitch for the last 3 games in Arlington. He was dealing with a sinus infection, and he has not pitched since the 15th. Danel Nunez has obviously been a great breakout reliever so far this year for the Mets, and he was not available this week.
And can I just say one other thing is that when do we ever hear like one of the other team's best relievers is not available because of a sinus infection? When does that happen? Did
I say that I thought that Drew Smith sneezed on him?
You said that.
Did I say that?
Yeah. But what I'm saying though,
no, that's not a joke. That's true.
No, but saying with other teams, like what was they were like, oh well, they can't go to like this lockdown reliever because he's got like of course it's the Mets like that they have the guy with the sinus infection.
Bad luck. We're cursed. Yada yada yada. Andrew,
injury report perfectly. Luke Ritter is now playing shortstop. Acuna is out of the game.
Oh God.
Oh, I thought you were going to say Luke Ritter got injured. I was about to lose it, man.
Yeah, Acuna out. Ritter moved from some fat white dude came and played first. Ritter's now at short.
All right, so it's probably precaution. I don't know, but we'll see an update on that.
It was a shoulder. He fucked up his shoulder stealing third.
But all I can say is that if Luis Angel Acuna is down, that is Gilbert, Williams, and Acuna all out.
Head first slides in the minor leagues is insanity to me.
Yeah, that's my opinion. So there is some concern there. Obviously, they'll be back. They'll play a baseball game again eventually in their career. But the little people are not faring well there. It's only a matter of time before Frank just drops to the floor. Okay.
Yeah,
Jesus.
All right, some parting words, then we'll get out of here. Going into Chicago, and we've got Jose Quintana on the mound, everyone's favorite, facing off a lefty who's exactly on his level in Shota Imanaga, who is pretty much on pace to be Rookie of the Year and the Cy Young. I don't think anybody's really been better than him. Andrew, I'll go to you. What do you got going into this series? 3 games under 500.
Yeah, it's another shit team. Their bullpen has continued to be a major weakness. So if you can get Shota somehow out of the game, in the 5th inning, getting to that god-awful bullpen of the Cubs. They've had, Hector Neris has been god-awful, and the rest of their bullpen's been bad. So if you could fight out their starting, because their starting pitchers have been relatively decent, maybe you can win that game that way if you keep the game close, get the starter out, and then go to work like we used to in 2022. Eat the pitcher out, and then go out and then go kill their bullpen. See if you can stay hot. Again, Alvarez and Vientos, if they can stay hot, this offense can beat anybody. So we'll see if they keep it going. And 2 day games at Wrigley, it's a Friday 2:00 game. Who the hell, or 1:00 game for me? Who the hell has this schedule?
Yeah. Very, very odd, and obviously we're going to have to probably move it to Monday once again after that series because it is a night game for the final game of the series. It's been very weird, obviously, since that London series. So, anyways, Frank, I'll go to you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. We get to see Jorge Lopez again. That's going to be fun. I mean, like I said, I hope his glove ends up in the ivy. That would just be so fascinating to me. And we get to see Tomas Nido. I kind of get this, like that's kind of been like a storyline that people are talking about. And I feel like, I don't know, I feel like Nido's been such a good guy to this organization that I don't think he'd give out their secrets that much. Like he may, like if he's calling a game, like he's going to do what he has to do, but I don't think he's actively going to be like, Jose Quintana is going to throw like blah, 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 and blah, blah. Like, yeah, I don't think he's going to give them like a full TED talk and PowerPoint presentation of what the Mets are going to do. So I think that storyline is a little like, I don't know. I think it's like a little bit of overreaction from some people. I think that Tomas Nido is a good guy that like wouldn't do that, in my opinion. That's just from the outside looking in. But listen, it's a big series. Right now Mets and Chicago are tied. And like I said, with a lot of these teams facing each other, as you're going to be like, losing ground, gaining ground, whatever, you got to make the most of those head-to-head matchups and actually put yourself in some distance within these teams. Like I used the San Diego team, for example, where they were above 500 when that series began. Then they became under 500 because the Mets had a really good series against them. And now the Mets are half game behind San Diego compared to before. So it's like you need to do a similar thing to the Cubs. And really, you just got to get some of these teams to kind of drop out of the race. I mean, that's really what it comes down to, is that, you wonder about how many of these teams are actually going to still go for it and be like, okay, we're still 3 games out, but we have to jump 7 teams. Are we actually going for it? And do some of these teams become sellers? Because then you as a buyer, then that gives you more things available, So I think that they've got to make the most of these head-to-head matchups. Like when you're facing interleague play, it kind of is what it is, like in the Texas situation. But when it's a team that you're literally tied with, like these matchups are really, really important. The Cubs are under 500. They're not that great. The Mets had some ugly losses against them early in the season. Like now is the time to kind of avenge that a little bit and actually, put yourself in a much better spot.
Yeah. In terms of other news, obviously it's on the bottom right, but for our audio listeners, for those of you who have not seen, Justin Verlander is on the injured list with neck discomfort, 15-day IL. For those of you who want to know why that's important, the Mets are going to be covering $17.5 million of his vesting option, which is $35 million if he reaches 140 innings pitched this year. Right now, he's around 70-ish right now, so something to watch, obviously. But again, in terms of Justin Verlander, who was pretty much nothing but a soldier when he was here for the few moments he was. Hopefully, he does get better and gets back on the mound. We all know first ballot Hall of Famer, yada yada yada. He's been great for a long time, and you hope that he can continue his great career. And
I hate to break it to you, the Mets lost 2 of the 3. They didn't win. They had lost because it was a 4-game set. And don't forget, there was the infamous Luis Severino no-hitter going for a while, and that infamous Pete Alonso play at the plate where it looked like he might have been safe. They called him out. So it was.
The winner of this series is going to be ahead of the other.
Yes.
Because right now they are currently in the same ground. They're both a game out of the wild card at this current moment that we are speaking. And
that's okay.
Overall, hopefully they just keep on rolling. They just keep going. Also, rest in peace to the great Willie Mays.
Yes.
in my opinion, the greatest player of all time, all-around player, 93 years old. He was a Met at one point. They got to retire his number. He got to see it, so that's good. And currently they are playing a tribute game for the Negro Leagues, right? On Fox, which I'm going to probably catch the end of that once we're done here. But other than that, for those of you in here, thank you guys so much for watching, listening, and for those of you who tuned in live, who watched the entire thing or was just here for a little bit, make sure to subscribe to the Mets Weekly channel if you have not already. Turn on the post notifications for this very podcast, which is now recorded live every single Sunday and Thursday, depending on the schedule. Sometimes we switch it. And it's following every single series of games, so you guys hear about us. You guys hear from us after every single series, so every single 3 or 4 games. And, of course, the audio version dropping at 9 a.m. the following day. Make sure to follow us on TikTok and on X, all of us individually. Keep on playing. That's it. Just keep on playing through it. We got to get to 500 first, then we'll worry about the standings and everything. But going off to Chicago, and let's go Mets. We'll see you guys next time.